Hello, I'm Infamous Freier. What's that? It's time for Infamous Queer!
Pride, 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 darling, darling, pride, pride 95!
Let's talk about predictability. It should come to no surprise to any of you that gay movies can be just as predictable as straight movies. And if you've watched any one genre or subgenre of movie enough, you begin to notice the formula. However, there's a certain degree of comfort in the familiar. Just because we know what will probably happen, does that ever stop us watching a crime show or a hero's journey or a romantic comedy? No, because we still manage to be invested in the story and the characters, and we often enjoy the safety of a predictable plot. But what does the formula of a gay movie actually look like? Well, let's examine a good example of just that. A standard tale of forbidden love, random homophobes, and lack of characterisation that takes the form of a gay German police movie. A gay German police movie? A gay German police movie? This is Freefall.
And a policeman gay. Depends on what you mean.
Ah yes, Freefall. This movie was released in 2013 and tells the tale of... oh, whatever, it's a gay German police movie. Our two main characters, Mark and Kai, are in police training camp, living out their days through a routine, which mostly consists of jogging and subsequent smoking, and Kai frequently blasting Mark with blazing levels of sex-eye. Unsurprisingly, it doesn't take long before Kai decides to try a pickup technique he stole from the third series of Skins. Mark is at first upset by this come-on, but as the story progresses, he begins to be more and more interested in Kai's advances. However, back at home, Mark is in a relationship with Bettina and is very soon to be a father. As a result, he is conflicted about his growing feelings for Kai and tries to fend him off with uncomfortable homoerotic aggression. But to no avail, as soon Kai is transferred to Mark's police unit, forcing Mark to confront him once more. It doesn't take long before the two are having a fully fledged affair. Unfortunately for Mark, his wife begins to notice how distant and awkward her husband now is, and berates him for his frequent absence. Meanwhile, the other members of Mark's police unit find out that Kai is gay. Het Guy, in particular, is very disturbed by this, and decides to give Kai a hard time. This harassment apparently isn't something that can be solved by the watch commander, because, fuck you, that's why.
Weiß genau, wer wen provoziert hat, oder?
Hast du genau gesehen, was passiert ist?
Dann musst du mit zum Chef.
Ach komm. Ich weiß genau, dass die Scheiße dann an mir hängen bleibt.
Ist nicht dein Ernst, oder?
Wenn du Gruppenführer bist, kannst du meinetwegen den Scheiß melden. Aber schreib mir nicht vor, was ich zu tun habe.
Mark steps in to defend Kai and gets socked in the face for his trouble. Later, at the hospital, they inadvertently out themselves to Mark's mother. Oops. Now that things are sufficiently awkward, Mark has no choice but to admit his affair to his wife and decides that he can't continue his relationship with Kai. Kai, meanwhile, has gotten rather sick of being hit in the face and moves town, leaving Mark feeling confused and crap with an uneasy relationship with Bettina, his parents, and the rest of his unit. And so the movie ends. Yay! Here we have a good example of two standard gay movie plot lines, which I will call the corrupting drifter plot and the Brokeback Mountain plot. A corrupting drifter is someone who moves into the main character's hometown or place of employment or whatever else. He or she is the new guy who awakens our main character's sexuality. Usually, the corrupting drifter is more self-assured and more knowledgeable about their own sexuality, and the film often ends with them leaving the town. If it's a happy ending, the main character will either persuade them to stay or go with them. The Brokeback Mountain plot is something you may be familiar with from, well, Brokeback Mountain, and it's more commonly used for gay male stories than it is for lesbian ones, owing to the greater visibility and the greater taboo against male homosexual relationships. The main characters will be engaged in some kind of hypermasculine profession or society, usually one that doesn't accept homosexuality. One of them, possibly a corrupting drifter, will be more actively gay than the other, and he'll make the first move, as well as being in the more receptive position in sex. Also, they'll have sex in a way that would probably actually lead to significant pain. Use lube, guys. The more oppressed character has a mousy wife and a new baby, thus making the contrast between boring, stable domesticity and exciting, dangerous, forbidden love even more evident. Our male leads keep making flimsy excuses for why they're spending so much time together, whether it's jogging or fishing. Anything to keep away from the prying eyes of oppressive in-laws and the aggressive societal judgments of other men. Christ, both films even feature the main character getting punched in the nose and bleeding everywhere, and both nose injuries turn out to be far more crucial to the plot than you'd think. However, unlike the relationship depicted in a corrupting drifter plot, the relationship depicted in a Brokeback Mountain plot has to end, either because of the reluctance of the main character, or because of the societally dangerous levels of homosexuality of his partner. There's also some very notable differences between the way this plot is implemented and the way the characters are depicted. To put it bluntly, for much of the movie, Mark and Kai are barely characters at all. For the first 20 minutes, they barely talk to each other, their interactions consisting mainly of Kai teasing Mark for being unfit, and the two smoking a bajillion cigarettes together. Hey, if you want to be less unfit, maybe you shouldn't smoke so many goddamn cigarettes, buddy! Speaking of Mark and Kai, it's a good 30 minutes into the movie before we even learn their names. For the first part of the movie, I was calling them Unfit and Blondie, and that's probably not a good sign. Unlike in Brokeback Mountain, where loneliness and isolation prompts the two main characters to talk and get to know each other before they begin relating to each other sexually, here it's hard to point to a moment where the two main characters even have much of a conversation at all, other than a few lines here or there.
Freier?
Tut mir leid wegen vorhin.
I don't think I've ever seen romantic leads talk to each other less. Hell, even the repressed and mumbly Ennis Del Mar told Jack about his life and his family and his work experience. We barely get more than a sentence out of Mark at a time. Unlike Brokeback Mountain, there's also very little attention paid to the men's profession. Usually a gay movie will include something about what exactly the characters do when they're not touching each other, especially if the romantic leads meet on the job and work together. However, despite my excitement at the thought of a gay German police movie, Freefall seems to have forgotten about the whole police thing. Much to my disappointment, there's barely any police work at all in this film. We don't get to see Mark and Kai work together, unless you count sitting in a van as a good depiction of police work. Unlike Southland, which barely shows the home life and sexuality of their one gay character, this film revolves entirely around home life and family life. The fact that the two main characters are police officers training for riot duty makes barely any difference to the plot at all. This is more like something you'd see in a lesbian movie, usually because there's a long-standing tradition of giving female characters very little characterisation or interests outside of just being attractive women, and with lesbian movies, there's two of them, but it's rare in a movie about men. These two characters may as well have been pasta machine technicians for all the difference it made, although there would have been a good deal fewer communal shower scenes. There's a couple of ways in which this movie is interesting, and deviates very slightly from the formula. For one thing, it's not really set in a repressive society, nor is it a period piece, so one wonders why exactly the conflict is as present as it is. I suppose anyone can be unaware or ashamed about their own sexuality, but there's far less of a reason why Mark couldn't decide to leave Bettina for Kai than there is in the other, more notable example of this plot. I don't know which part of Germany this movie is set in, but this is present day, and Germany is a country with a pretty excellent track record for gay rights.
Ich bin schwul und das ist auch gut so, liebe Genossinnen und Genossen.
Of course, there are dickhead homophobes everywhere, but if there's any country and any time where it would be easy for the two main characters to transfer to a unit where they wouldn't be bullied by the rampantly het, it's Germany. Well, Spain or Canada or Sweden would work too, but Germany being the place that actually invented the word homosexual and began the trend of treating sexuality in a neutral and scientific way, it has a bit of a track record. There's still conflict in the movie, but our main characters aren't trapped and they have several options. Despite the fact that masculine aggression runs high throughout the movie, Mark gets his revenge on Het Guy in a slightly interesting way.
Was ist denn jetzt los? Hat dir der Engel den Verstand aus mir Hirn gefickt, oder was? Hier, magst mal lutschen?
Würde dir gefallen, oder?
Liegt da was zwischen euch, oder was?
Eifersüchtig?
Ach du Scheiße. Ist ja widerlich. Hier, packt doch mal an. Hm? Ihr Schwulen fickt doch eh alles, was euch in die Quere kommt.
Bist du Scheiße oder was?
Hat dir gefallen,
Now usually I wouldn't in any way condone a person kissing someone who clearly doesn't want to be kissed, but in this case, being kissed was far more upsetting to Het Guy than being punched would have been, thus making this a pretty excellent form of revenge. A beautiful example of using a sign of affection as a form of attack. David Bowie would be proud. Freefall isn't what you'd describe as a surprising movie. It follows a path which is now well worn, and can't really be given credit for breaking new ground. But is it worth watching? There's a place for predictability in our lives. A predictable movie can still be enjoyable, and Freefall certainly has its merits. Both leads have good chemistry, even if they don't communicate nearly as much as they should. And it's worth having a version of the Brokeback Mountain plot where it's set in modern day, there's sensible, level-headed characters, and options available for the two leads. No one's life is irreparably ruined, and no one dies. Basically, watch this movie if you wished Brokeback Mountain didn't make you cry, and you wanted the movie to feature a good deal more footage of the attractive leads touching each other. And who doesn't want to see that? That was Freefall. And now, if you'll excuse me, I've got to go. Jogging.
In your arms I'll